Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Julian understood what he meant. You mean you've got something on her ex? Louis explained, I've got a video to prove that her ex cheated on her with someone else while dating her. I'd wanted to give it to her the other day to let her see this man for who he was, but the accident happened that very night. In the end, he refrained from dealing a death blow to a deceased person. After all, the death of Eva's ex did have something to do with him. Even if Eva managed to see him for who he really was before his death, it wouldn't have changed anything now, Julian said in an attempt to advise his brother to stop provoking Eva. Louis excelled in everything, but he was a failure when it came to relationships. Aged 30 years old, he had been courting Eva for nearly 3 years. By rights, all his passion for this woman should have worn out after such a long time, but it didn't happen. Instead, he was still as obsessed with her as ever. Not even the batches of various beauties in show business who had made advances to him could replace her in his heart. I'm tired, Louis. I'm going back to sleep. Julian stood up and left the room. Louis picked up his phone. After finding Linda's number, he sent her a text message, asking, "How is she?" President Gilmore, it seems that Eva is quite shaken. She's afraid of being alone now, Linda texted back. Call me if anything happens, Louis replied. He also became worried, fearing that Eva might have been terribly shaken this time. Meanwhile, Jessie returned to her room to hear Lexi chatting in the gossip chat group. Upon seeing the former, the latter asked, Jessie, is President Gilmore here as well? How did you know that? Lexi looked eager for more gossip. I've got a tip. Not only that, but I know that he's here for Eva. The rumors are indeed credible. It's rumored that he's been courting her, though it's not successful. Jessie had learned even more about this today, but she couldn't share it with Lexi anymore. The matter between Eva and Louis shouldn't be the subject of gossip, she thought. Just then, Lexi leaned her head over and asked, Jessie, I've heard that you and young Master Julian are gonna do a kissing scene tomorrow. Are you looking forward to it? Jessie's pretty face reddened at once. Why would I? I'm afraid that I'll botch it. Don't worry. I'm sure you'll do a fine job of it with young Master Julian acting opposite you. I hear that he used doubles in all his intimate scenes in the past, which were all shot from a long distance. This time, he's gonna do the scene himself with you. Jessie's face was blushing scarlet. All right, let's drop the subject. I'm going back to my room to sleep. Good night. Lexi waved goodnight to her before proceeding to gossip with others. It was well past midnight, and the entire city had quieted down. Almost everyone had gone off to dreamland. Eva was lying asleep in bed, while Linda dragged a sofa over to her bedside to accompany her. When it was almost 1 a.m, Eva suddenly began flailing her arms in her sleep. Go away. Stay away from me, and stop harassing me. I never betrayed you. What's wrong with you, Eva? Are you having nightmares? Linda was startled. Seeing how Eva was unable to wake from her nightmare with her forehead covered in a cold sweat, she was somewhat at a loss for what to do. Consequently, she picked up the phone and dialed Louis's number. As expected, the phone call was quickly answered on the other end. Hello, what's the matter? This is bad, President Gilmore. Eva's having a nightmare. Open the door for me, the man ordered before hanging up. Linda raced to the door and opened it, after which Louis quickly strode in and entered the master bedroom, where Eva was clutching her quilt on the white sheets. Strands of sweat-soaked hair were sticking to her forehead, while tears rolled out of her tightly shut eyes as she seemed to be in fear of someone. She mumbled, "Stay away from me. I'm not scared of you." Finally, she called out a name in fright. Don't harass me anymore, Tucker. I promise you that I won't go out with him. Louis's dashing eyebrows instantly furrowed at these words. He remembered that Eva had seen Tucker in the latter's dying moments. Could it be that Tucker, in his dying moments, told her not to go out with me? Did he curse or say something like that? Eva, wake up. Louis reached out and took her hand in an attempt to wake her up. However, Eva shoved his hand away even more fearfully. Go away. Don't touch me. Louis bent down to her ear. It's me, Eva. It's me, he whispered softly. I'm Louis. I'll protect you. Now wake up. Still submerged in her nightmares, Eva finally opened her eyes, which were tearful and glassy with a trace of lingering fear. Seeing the man right before her, she reached out and wrapped her arms tightly around his neck, burying her face in his chest. At the sight of this, the man immediately pulled the covers off her and scooped her up from bed before coming out to the living room and settling her on the sofa. Have you been having such nightmares? What did Tucker say to you before he died? He asked in a low voice. Eva didn't say a word, nor did she want to say anything. Louis's handsome face was taut. Did he tell you in the moments before his death that you mustn't go out with me, or he'd keep harassing you even in death? Eva looked at him with a stunned expression. Apparently, he had guessed it right. How did you know that? She asked in a croaky voice. Louis heaved a sigh, before suddenly throwing his arms around her in a somewhat overbearing fashion. Why mind something said by a dead person? Can't you see the living person right before you? Get off me. Eva struggled for a moment. What if I told you that Tucker had been cheating on you while you two were dating? Would it make you feel better? Louis asked sourly. Eva looked at him in surprise. Then, she replied rather angrily, please show him some respect, will you? He's dead already. Louis replied, you think I'm smearing him on purpose? I've got proof of it. With that, he reached out for the cell phone that he had tossed onto the sofa just now. Then, he played a video he had saved, which was recorded by the surveillance camera. In the video, the complete date and time were displayed, showing that it was recorded a week before Tucker's death while he and Eva were dating. It showed him smooching with a voluptuous young lady in the elevator. Not only that, but they were in a hotel at that very moment. Eva looked at the scene in the elevator in disbelief. After the elevator door opened and the pair came out, there was another scene showing them entering a hotel room. It wasn't until 9 a.m. the next morning that Tucker and his female companion finally came out of the room while cuddling each other and wearing different clothes from yesterday, so it was a no-brainer how they had spent the night in the hotel. Eva squeezed her eyes shut. For a moment, her feelings were mixed. She had been racked with guilt for 2 years because of Tucker's death, thinking that she had betrayed him. Little did she think that he had cheated on her before. Louis added in a deep voice, if you still don't believe it, I can find the young lady in this video so that you can meet and talk to her. He wanted to find a way for Eva to overcome this past relationship. She can't keep on living in guilt over Tucker's death. It's not necessary. Eva shook her head. Indeed, she calmed down a lot thanks to this video. Whatever Tucker said to you before he died, you don't have to care about it anymore, Louis said in a deep voice, comforting her. Eva closed her eyes, her pretty face bearing some kind of brokenness that would make anyone's heart ache terribly. She said to Linda, who had stayed up late with her, you may go to sleep, Linda. Linda, of course, knew that her presence here was unnecessary. She opened the door to the guest room and went in. Holding Eva in his arms, Louis said to her, let's go to my room. I'll keep you company while you sleep. Indeed, Eva needed company at this very moment. She was still recovering from the nightmare, feeling as though Tucker's bloodied face would appear before her the minute she closed her eyes. Suffering from mental torture, she didn't even dare to close her eyes right now. Louis reached out and pressed her face to his chest. Holding her tight, he said, don't worry. I'm here with you. Eva closed her eyes. Nestling against his chest, she indeed felt a powerful sense of security, as if she could resist her inner fears with this man's strength. And with that, she fell asleep in Louis's arms without realizing it. Holding her in his arms, the latter leaned back against the sofa and acted as a body pillow for her until dawn. When Eva opened her eyes in the early morning, she found herself sleeping on the sofa. The man she had slept on top of was closing his eyes in repose while propping his head on his elbow. She quietly crept out of his embrace, but the man nonetheless woke up. He opened his eyes and smiled, saying, "You're up?" "Thank you," Eva said softly. She had slept well in his arms last night. Louis sat up while lightly moving the joints of his arms, which were tingling from the pressure on them. Even so, he dared not show it before the woman. "I've got scenes to do today. Why don't you go back instead?" Eva said to him. Louis looked up at her, emanating the captivating charm of a grown man through his thick eyebrows and jet-black eyes. "I'll accompany you while you do your scenes. If you're scared at night, you can sleep with your arms around me." Eva's pretty face reddened slightly. In a soft voice, she uttered, "Suit yourself." At this moment, on the set of the film, Jessie and Julian were getting ready for their very first kissing scene in a room covered with green screens. Having changed into her costume, Jessie was wearing natural and tastefully simple makeup since she'd be doing some close-up shots today. Her lips were slightly pink in color, which made her look delicate and charming. This kissing scene was one where Jessie's character was intent on getting away from Julian's character, who then furiously seized her by the throat and kissed her in an extremely controlled manner. With everything ready, Jessie and Julian took up their respective positions, standing about 1 meter apart from each other. At this moment, Jessie stepped back while angrily speaking her lines to the man before her. "I'm not staying here unless you kill me and keep my dead body around you." With that, she attempted to flee. Vincent shouted, "Cut." That was good. Now let's move on to the next scene, where Julian grabs Jessie's throat and forces her to look up as he kisses her. "Come on, get in your positions." Jessie's cheeks were already looking as though they'd been colored with rouge. Pursing her lips for a moment, she looked at the man opposite her before saying, as if begging for mercy, "Go easy on me, okay?" Julian's lips curled upward into a mischievous smile. "I'll try as much as I can." As soon as Vincent shouted the word action, Jessie's face took on a stunned expression. The next instant, Julian grabbed her throat with his large hand in a not-so-tight grip, wrapping an arm around her waist as his thin lips pressed down on hers in anger. Jessie's beautiful eyes rounded slightly. Her mind was blown, she looked totally stupefied. She forgot her script and her micro-expressions, let alone the fact that she had to struggle. At this moment, she was totally overwhelmed by the moist kiss sucking her pink lips. "Cut." "Let's do it again," Vincent ordered, upon which Julian let go of her while breathing heavily. Jessie's face reddened again, she put up her hands over it. Seeing the situation, Vincent promptly said to the assistant director, "Come on, Timmy, clear the set." Consequently, all the crew members and actors who didn't need to be present were asked to leave the set. Taking deep breaths in secret, Jessie sat on the floor, still blushing to her ears as though she couldn't calm down at all. Julian also sat on the floor next to her. Gazing at the young lady who looked so shy that she dared not show herself in public, he felt at once amused and sorry for her. The makeup artist quickly touched up the pair's makeup. Suppressing the urge to laugh, Jessie stood up, but as soon as she saw Julian across from her, she couldn't help laughing. For a time, she laughed so uncontrollably that she couldn't stop. Vincent even teased her as he looked on, saying, "Calm down for a moment, Jessie. I know being kissed by Julian makes you so happy that you want to laugh, but let's finish this scene first, okay?" Not only did Jessie burst out laughing this time, but Julian also laughed across from her, revealing a line of shiny white teeth. His eyes had a look of secret pleasure in them as he watched how the young lady split her sides laughing after he had kissed her. At once, Jessie prepared herself emotionally, suppressing the urge to laugh at this moment by recalling some difficult days in her past. After calming down at last, she looked at the man opposite her and gave him a lovely wink. "All right, let's do it again." Vincent signaled for everyone to get ready with a wave of his hand. At Vincent's command, Jessie's eyes immediately took on a panic-stricken expression as Julian grabbed her throat in one hand. In the actual scene, the female protagonist would be pulled into the male protagonist's grasp by a powerful force created by the latter. During the filming of the scene, however, Jessie had to throw herself at Julian for the latter to kiss her. No sooner had she come to the man and spoken her lines than the latter found the right angle, bent down, and pressed his thin lips to her pink ones. Vincent was dissatisfied with the take, though. "Cut. It's not emotional enough. You were too gentle, Julian, you weren't manly enough." Julian grunted, "I'm not manly enough?" Vincent laughed at once. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm talking about the take." Upon hearing this, Jessie, who had barely stopped laughing just now, instantly fell over laughing again. Julian looked at her. "How dare this little girl laugh at me?" It was said that the set of a film was often filled with merriment, and now the filming was indeed so merry that everyone couldn't stop laughing. They then did several more takes of the scene, where Jessie got kissed by Julian again and again because Vincent was fussy about either the angle of the filming or the actor's emotions. As a result, Jessie and Julian ended up having to kiss a total of 15 times in this scene. When they eventually moved on to the next scene, Jessie finally understood how difficult it was to do kissing scenes. The filming lasted from noon to the afternoon. In her dressing room, Jessie looked at herself in the mirror. She wondered if it was just her imagination, but her lips felt kind of swollen from the kisses. Meanwhile, in another dressing room, Julian downed one bottle after another of iced water. After he swilled God knew how many bottled drinks in a row, Bethany, his assistant who was looking on, became worried that he might have caught a cold. Jessie then went to another set to get ready for her next scene, whereas Julian never came out of his dressing room. Meanwhile, Eva was also doing her filming in another location. Her character's role was to be the Demon Lord's strategist, so she had to film a lot of scenes on her own. At this moment, a gracefully handsome and slender figure was sitting in the shade of a tree where Eva was doing her filming. Louis had just arrived, but his presence instantly made everyone on the filming set, the mood of which had been cheerful at first, so nervous and fearful that they dared not even smile. Moreover, one of the male actors found himself in an even more dreadful predicament. He was supposed to take Eva's hand and drag her out of the scene. The first time he took her hand, they were stopped by the director, so he had no choice but to do another take of the scene. At this moment, Louis came over and stared at him with folded arms, his handsome face sullen as hell. As soon as the actor took Eva's hand, he sensed a death stare. As a member of the film crew, how could he not know that this president of the Gilmore Corporation was after Eva? Ronnie, the assistant director, was clueless about what was going on. "Cut. What are you doing? You were dragging her to the wrong side of the scene. You're supposed to drag her to this side. Let's do it again." Eva noticed that the actor playing opposite her was suffering from nerves. Knowing who was the cause of this, she walked straight up to Louis, saying, "Can you get in the car and take a break instead of coming over and interfering with our filming?" "When did I ever interfere with your filming?" "I didn't even say a word," Louis argued somewhat sulkily. "Just get in the car," Eva said, chasing him away in an almost authoritative tone. Everyone was on edge upon hearing this, fearing that Louis might get angry. To their great surprise, he merely turned around and left. At the sight of this, they heaved a sigh of relief. Seems like Eva is currently the only woman who can keep him under her thumb. Rumor had it that Louis had fallen for Eva when the latter signed up for showbiz at the age of 20. He had courted her for 3 years, during which time she had a boyfriend. After her boyfriend passed away in a car accident, he spent 2 more years waiting for her. Now she was 25 years old, whereas he was already 30. Such a relationship was really rare in this industry, which was full of temptations and all sorts of beauties, but it was even rarer for someone to love a woman as unwaveringly as Louis did. After Eva was done filming the scene, she and Linda went to the RV to take a break, upon which Louis strode out of the 4-wheel drive next to it. Knowing what to do in such situations, Linda cleverly excused herself and left at once. "Are you tired?" Louis asked with concern. Eva replied, "No, I'm not." Sitting in the air-conditioned car, she picked up a bottle of drinking water and tried to open it. To her dismay, though, the bottle cap was so tight that she had trouble unscrewing it for a moment. At the sight of this, the man naturally took the bottle from her and helped her unscrew the cap, after which she grabbed the bottle and took a drink from it. Just when she was about to place it aside, the man snatched it from her with his large hand and abruptly started to drink from it. Eva's eyes rounded in astonishment. Watching him finish half the bottle, she couldn't help feeling vexed. What the hell is he doing, coming all the way here to suffer on the set of a film instead of doing his job as the president of a company? "Why don't you go home instead?" she said in another attempt to chase him away. "From now on, I'll stay with you without going anywhere else," Louis replied firmly. Eva looked away with unknown feelings. "It's been 2 years now. It's about time you pay some attention to me, no?" Louis said in a husky voice. "Who says that I have to pay attention to you? My contract's ending in a month, upon which time I'll break my contract with you and go wherever I want. That's none of your business." "I won't let you break the contract," Louis retorted possessively. Eva's eyes were calm and imperturbable. "I've studied the contract, and you've got no right to make me stay. If you refuse to let me break the contract, I'll sue you." Louis heaved a sigh. "Where do you want to go to then?" "I don't know. I'm just gonna stay away from some unpleasant people and stuff, anyway." Eva gazed into the distance while yearning for her long-lost freedom. Louis looked at her with a pained look in his eyes. "You already knew that Tucker had betrayed you long ago. Are you still gonna insist on loving him and refuse to accept me?" Meanwhile, at a green screen studio, Jessie had completed the filming of several scenes. Then, seeing that the next scene would be between her and Julian, she couldn't help looking forward to it. When it was finally time to film the scene, a temporary stand-in suddenly arrived, and Vincent explained the scene to him. When Jessie came over as well, Lexi said to her, "Jessie, I hear that young Master Julian isn't coming for this scene today. A double will stand in for him instead." Jessie grew worried at once. "Why? Did something happen to him?" "I don't know about it either, all I hear is that he's not coming." Jessie immediately went to Vincent, asking him when he was free after he finished explaining the scene. "Director Cooper, is young Master Julian not joining us for the filming of this scene?" Vincent explained, "Well, Jessie, the thing is, Julian's not coming because he's engaged in something else. It doesn't matter, though. I'll have someone stand in for him by shooting him from behind, so you just have to act your part in the scene." "Did something happen to him?" Jessie asked. "Oh, it's nothing. He's just..." "Hee," Vincent said before bursting into a chuckle. "He only needs some rest, so don't worry about him. He's all right." Jessie nodded, inwardly, though, she was still worried. "I'll visit him when I'm done filming this scene," she thought. The filming of this scene was somewhat difficult, as Jessie made a few mistakes during filming. Perhaps because she had something else on her mind, she kept having trouble finding the right emotion. When the filming was finally completed, it was already 5:30 in the afternoon. Since she had no filming to do that night, she returned to her dressing room and removed all her makeup. After changing into a set of casual wear of her own, she came out and walked directly toward Julian's RV. Julian's assistants were sheltering from the sun under a parasol next to the RV. Upon seeing Jessie, they immediately stood up with a smile, saying, "Hi, Jessie. Is young Master Julian in the RV?" "Yeah, he's taking a nap in there," answered Bethany. The next instant, she said in surprise, "Come to think of it, he's been napping for 2 hours now. Perhaps he's fallen asleep. Can I get in to check on him?" Jessie asked, fearing that he might be ill. Bethany opened the door, after which Jessie quietly crept up the steps into the RV for fear of rousing the man inside from his sleep. She then saw Julian, who was resting his head on his arm and lying on the little bed at the back of the RV. He seemed soundly asleep. Is he that exhausted? Feeling sorry for the man, she sat down next to him before studying him. He was covered with a blanket, his skin, which was usually as white as marble, was tinged with red at this very moment, as though a layer of blush had been applied to it. When she first saw it, she thought it was beautiful, but when she looked closely, she became alarmed. Immediately, she placed her hand on his forehead, which was so hot to the touch that it burned her palm right away. "Oh, my God! Julian's having a fever." To confirm it again, Jessie bent down and touched her forehead to his. Just then, the man opened his eyes. When he saw the lady holding his face in her hands and pressing her forehead to his, a dazzling light instantly came to his eyes, and his lips curled into a smile. "Are you trying to take advantage of me?" Jessie replied, "What are you talking about? Don't you know that you're having a fever?" She felt somewhat put out. To think this guy doesn't even know to go to the hospital when he's ill. How worrying. Julian did realize that his body was somewhat feverish, but he didn't feel unwell at all. He sat up and stroked his forehead with his hand. "Is it hot?" "It burned my hand," Jessie said before quickly stepping out of the RV. She said to Bethany, "Young Master Julian is having a fever. Hurry and take him to the hospital." "What? No way. Hurry and start the car, Charles. We've got to rush young Master Julian to the hospital." Charles, the chauffeur, immediately started the nanny van nearby, whereas Jessie got back into the RV and got the man inside out of it to accompany him to the hospital. Bethany was beating herself up. To think I was unaware that my boss was having a fever. At this moment, she looked like a cat on a hot tin roof. "Sorry, young Master Julian. We've neglected our duty by not realizing that you're ill. Not only that, but we've let you sleep in there for such a long time." However, Julian refused to go to the hospital. "I'm not going to the hospital. Just get some aspirin for me instead." Jessie wouldn't let him treat his illness in such a way, though. Locking her arm in his, she urged, "Let's go to the hospital." "I'm going with you. I'm just having a fever." "It'll go down once I take some aspirin," Julian insisted rather stubbornly. He hadn't been ill for years, so he disliked the idea of going to the hospital. Bethany quickly persuaded him as well. "Young Master Julian, your condition can't wait. Let's go to the hospital, shall we?" Jessie was already dragging the man into the nanny van by force. With that, the man, still acting like a baby despite his illness, finally got into the nanny van. After Bethany called Harper, a male assistant over, they got into the nanny van and headed straight for the film studio hospital. Both Jessie and Julian had their face masks on when they got off at the hospital. Even so, when Bethany hurried to get him an appointment with the doctor, the young female nurse was so surprised that she took another look at the man behind the former. "Oh, God! Julian Gilmore is actually here at the hospital." The moment Julian and others left, a female fan suddenly cried, "Ah! It's Julian!" Instantly, some young fans ran after him in the lobby. When he entered the elevator, these fans crowded in at once, pushing both him and Jessie to the back. At the sight of this, Bethany and Harper immediately urged, "Give us some space, please." Upon reaching the doctor's office, Julian sat down for a checkup. Seeing that his body temperature reached as high as about 104 Fahrenheit, Jessie got so shocked that her heart nearly jumped out of her chest. To think this guy refused to come to the hospital despite having such a high fever. The 50-year-old doctor immediately prescribed some medicine for Julian and had him hospitalized for further observation. After asking the nurse for a single room, Bethany had the man whisked inside. Julian's fans milled around outside the room, but they were sensible enough to let him have some privacy. At this moment, however, they also noticed that the young lady accompanying him was none other than Jessie Silverstein, the rising starlet. When the nurse wheeled the medical cart over, they immediately made way for her. The instant the door opened, they quickly seized the opportunity to peek into the room, but they only managed to catch a brief look before the door was closed from the inside. The nurse, who was also one of Julian's fans, was very excited as she put him on a drip. At this moment, she saw Jessie taking off her face mask next to them. Looking closely at the only actress who'd been rumored to be in a relationship with Julian, she was surprised to find that the former was gentle and kind. Furthermore, she saw a kind of long-lost natural beauty in her. Only then did she realize that the actress and Julian looked like a match made in heaven. Before inserting the needle, she said in advance, "Mr. Gilmore, this is going to hurt a little. Please bear with it for a moment." Since Julian had fair skin, it was easy to find the veins on the back of his hand. Jessie was watching on from the side and shared his pain. On the other hand, as soon as the nurse finished setting up the 4 drips for Julian, she was torn between her reluctance to leave and having the heart to disturb her idol's recuperation. Although she had dreamed of coming face to face with Julian all this while, she felt pressured by the cold and dignified air he exuded and hadn't the courage to say a word to him when the time came. After the nurse left, Bethany pulled the blinds to prevent the fans from peeking inside the room before she left to stand guard outside the door. Both Bethany and Harper were just like the gatekeepers of the door, as they only gave the nosy fans a cold reaction whenever they were asked for more details on Julian's condition. It was a method they both had trained to ensure Julian's safety. Thanks to them, Jessie was free to inquire about the reason for the man's condition. "How did you come down with a fever when you were just fine before? Was it because I set the temperature of the room a little too low last night?" Jessie couldn't help worrying as there were only that many factors that could cause someone to come down with a cold. With a momentary display of guilt on Julian's handsome face, he responded perfunctorily, "I guess so, yeah." Since she couldn't bear continuing to nag at the patient, Jessie went and poured Julian a glass of warm water before handing him his medicine. "Here, take your meds." She handed the pack over to him. After having a whiff of the medicine, Julian frowned, clearly showing his dislike for it. Nevertheless, Jessie continued to persuade him. "You just have to swallow it." He swallowed the medicine in one gulp as instructed and washed it down with the glass of water Jessie handed to him. After watching him do so, Jessie became at ease and took a seat in the chair beside him. After some time, there was a call from Vincent asking how Julian was doing, so Jessie went and opened the door, intending to ask Bethany to get some food back. However, just as she cracked the door open, she heard the 2 assistants talking. "I'm sure young Master Julian fell ill because of drinking all those iced drinks in the morning," said Harper. "Right? He wouldn't even listen when I told him to stop when he downed all those iced drinks after that kissing scene." Harper laughed. "Then, do you know why young Master Julian kept drinking them?" As Bethany was thick-skinned, she replied bluntly, "Of course I do." Young Master Julian was trying to calm himself down. Harper snickered and asked, "What do you mean by that?" "Obviously, it's because of Miss Silverstein." I mean, young Master Julian never had a girlfriend for the past 27 years of his life, so how would he be able to take it? Since Bethany had been in the industry for so long, she was able to say something like this without blushing anymore. The same couldn't be said for Jessie, though, as she stood behind the door. Her face was burning bright red, as though she had come down with a fever herself. Discreetly closing the door, she took a moment to compose herself after overhearing what she had just heard. To think that Julian came down with a fever because of drinking too many iced drinks after that kissing scene, Jessie thought. Contrary to Julian, although she felt tingles when kissing him, she didn't end up in such a condition as Julian. She wasn't a little child anymore, after all. "What are you idling about over there?" A deep and low male voice, tinged with curiosity, spoke up. Shaking her head sheepishly, Jessie replied, "It's nothing." Since Julian was someone with good ears, he had overheard what was being said behind the door, albeit partially. Nevertheless, it was enough to know that his two assistants were gossiping about him drinking ice drinks in the morning. "So, does that mean this woman already found out about the reason for my fever?" Then, he said, "Come over here. Let's talk." Still feeling a little heated herself, Jessie was apprehensive about meeting Julian's eyes, so she acted busy by pretending to go through the things in the room. "What's there to talk about?" she asked. "About that kissing scene this morning. Did you feel anything after going through it so many times?" Julian bluntly broached into the crux of the matter. With her face blushing redder than before, she replied, "Nothing at all." "Not even a little?" Julian suddenly felt a little hurt by her answer. She actually felt nothing after kissing me? I mean, it's just for the show. It's not like we're doing it for real." Jessie blinked while explaining herself. Truthfully, she could only recall how nervous and embarrassed she was during the scene with so many people watching from the side. Julian pursed his thin lips. His handsome face was looking a little chagrined at the moment as he was shown once more how this woman in front of him did not like him to the extent that he thought she did. It was then the doors to Julian's ward were pushed open. What came next was Louis entering in hurried steps. Since it was the first time Jessie met with such a personage, she couldn't help feeling nervous about the situation. Nonetheless, she noticed that although the two brothers looked similar to each other, the air around Louis was much more intense, giving off a sense of unapproachability. "Hello, President Gilmore." She greeted him. There was a flash of surprise in Louis's eyes when he glanced over to Jessie. Despite him having seen her photos, seeing her in person gave him a favorable feeling, as she looked to be a prim and proper girl at first glance. "Were you the one insisting on admitting Julian to the hospital?" he asked with a look of gratitude in his eyes. "This is what anyone would do," Jessie thought as she nodded. "Then, I'll leave you two to it." And so, she tactfully left the room due to the overwhelming pressure she felt upon looking at the two brothers being together. After silently standing in front of Julian's bed for a while, Louis said, "It seems that you've truly fallen for her." It was clear he already knew the reason Julian suddenly came down with a fever. Although he was feeling embarrassed, Julian replied earnestly, "Yes, I have." Louis nodded. "At your age, you should already settle down with a family. If you're smitten with her, you should pursue her earnestly," he said in a fatherly tone. "How about you? Has Eva accepted you yet?" Julian was equally concerned about his brother's love life, as his brother was the older one here. "She will, eventually," Louis replied confidently. "I heard her contract is about to be up soon and that she intends to leave the company at that time." Julian was worried for his brother. "I'll find a way to retain her." Louis was reluctant in letting Eva go. Since he had given her 2 years to compose herself, he believed that she would accept his courtship the next time they met. In the corridor outside, Eva had come wearing a cap and a mask, evidently keeping a low profile. After she finished filming, she heard that Julian fell ill and was admitted to the hospital. As his friend, it was only natural for her to visit him. "Miss Duncan." Jessie came over and held on to her. "Jessie, how's Julian doing?" "His fever has gone down considerably. He's currently on an 4-drip. Bethany opened the door and said to Julian, "Young Master Julian, Miss Duncan is here to visit you." Upon hearing Bethany's announcement, the man sitting in the chair was clearly much happier about it than the man lying on the bed. "Let her in," Louis replied. "Tell Jessie to come in as well," Julian added. Bethany immediately smiled at Julian's instruction. "I understand." Then, she turned to the two lovely ladies who were linking arms with one another and thought that the two of them were going to be part of the family soon. "Miss Silverstein, Miss Duncan, President Gilmore asks for your presence." With their arms still linked, Jessie pulled Eva into the room. After they entered the room, Eva only looked at Julian with concern. "Julian, how are you doing? Feeling better?" "Yeah, I'm feeling much better." "I'm glad that you're feeling better. Then, I'll take my leave here." After saying that, she made her way out the door. "I'll see you out," Louis said in a deep voice. "There's no need for you to do that." Having said that, Eva left the room. Behind her, Julian immediately threw a look at his brother, asking him to hurry up and go after Eva. Naturally, Louis wouldn't allow such an opportunity to pass him by, so he left the room as well. Since Eva left in a hurry to avoid Louis, she couldn't recall where she had kept her mask. Hence, she was recognized the moment she was about to enter the elevator. Just as the elevator doors were about to close after she entered the elevator, a large hand prevented them from closing. In the next moment, Louis entered as well. It was then Eva felt as though she was trapped like a rat in the situation. Since there were many others in the elevator, she had no other option but to stand close to the man. Goodness! It's Eva Duncan. It really is her. She's so pretty. Eva raised her head and gave the female fans a polite and grateful smile, to which they immediately clenched their fists in excitement and boldly asked, "Miss Duncan, is he your boyfriend?" After shooting a glance at the man behind her, Eva immediately denied the fans' guess. "No, we're not close like that." "Not close?" The man suddenly wrapped his arms around her waist. Although it was only a harmless question from a fan, Louis answered sincerely, "She's my girlfriend." Eva was stunned by the man's words. Who was he to say that? When did I agree to become his girlfriend? Wow! Your boyfriend looks so handsome. You two look great together. The female fan sang high praises for the two. However, Eva only smiled stiffly and said solemnly, "He's really not my boyfriend. Please, don't misunderstand this." Then, the elevator dinged and stopped on the second floor. There, several elderly women forced their way into the elevator, despite seeing the elevator was close to being packed like sardines. "Hey, stand further in." One of them urged the crowd in a loud voice. And so, the crowd went deeper into the elevator, and Eva was forced into the corner, trapped between the corner and the man's chest, as Louis had used his body to shield her from the others. The man lowered his head while she raised hers. As their breaths intermingled, the air between them turned extremely ambiguous. Suddenly, someone from the crowd lost their footing and nudged Louis closer to Eva. At that moment, Eva's face grew red with clear annoyance in her eyes. It wasn't intentional. The man apologized to her by whispering in her ear. Since he was sticking close to her, Eva could feel a certain change in him. Her face grew redder as she thought, "Can't this man show me some respect? It's something that's out of my control." He was feeling pretty awkward as well. It was then the elevator doors opened on the first floor and the crowd slowly got out of the elevator. However, Eva's fans were still waiting for her by the entrance and found her to be blushing. and under the daylight, that blush lent her a sense of grace on her supple face. In no time at all, Eva was surrounded by several fans while Louis stood by her side. Just then, there was a man who was rushing to meet a doctor who was about to come in contact with Eva. Noticing the man, Louis immediately grabbed her by her shoulders and pulled her into his arms. Although Eva's face was buried against the man's chest for mere seconds, the fans were quick to work as they took pictures of the moment and thought back on how Eva was denying their relationship back in the elevator. To the fans, they assumed that this handsome hunk was someone outside the entertainment industry. Louis had always been keeping a low profile and remained a mysterious figure in the industry since he hardly made an appearance in the media. Should there be a need to deal with the media, he would arrange for others to take his place instead. Hence, it was natural that the fans didn't know the man before them was the very man in charge of Stardom Entertainment. And so, Eva could only politely greet her enthusiastic fans while making her way back to her ride. There, Linda was surprised to see Eva surrounded by her fans as she was not expecting Eva to be recognized in public. Thus, she was glad that Louis had acted as Eva's bodyguard in escorting her back to the car. "You should go back and take good care of Julian," Eva said, and immediately shut the door on Louis. However, the man stopped her from closing the door and shot a pleading gaze at her. "Let's have dinner together tonight." "I don't have the time. I have something to discuss with you." After a brief pondering, Eva replied, "Fine. Let's meet up then. We still have to discuss the termination of my contract." Despite him feeling a sting by her words, Louis helped Eva close the car door and saw her off. Naturally, he never thought to return to Julian's ward as he assumed his brother wouldn't want him there to be a third wheel as well. Meanwhile, Jessie was on top of things as she took great care of Julian. She made sure Julian was well hydrated and even prepared fruit slices for his consumption. And so, Julian's fever gradually went down. Since the medicine Julian consumed had sedative effects, he was now feeling drowsy. As he watched Jessie currently arranging the flowers in a vase, his heavy eyelids gradually fell as he drifted into his dreams. After Jessie was done arranging the flowers, she planned to let a certain man evaluate her flower arrangement. However, just as she was about to ask Julian, she realized that the man had fallen asleep. The skies had darkened outside. Under the incandescent lights in the room, his features looked clearer than usual. It was this very face that took Jessie's breath away back when she first entered the industry. At that time, she ignorantly joined this circle where she then saw Julian, who had just won the Best Actor award, and she watched the entire award ceremony that day. It was as if even the cameramen were especially fond of filming him, so most of the shots outside the award ceremony were of this man. He looked dignified under the various lights. Despite the numerous high-definition lenses pointed at his face, he sat calmly on the couch, showing no fear of being filmed from all angles. That night, Jessie found the only male celebrity she wanted to pursue him. Thus, she gathered all information about him within this circle. She had heard all kinds of gossip about male celebrities, but people only mentioned him sporadically as his lifestyle was just too faultless, and he had no scandals to offer to this circle. Even if he had a few headlines, it was only about his films. Hence, Jessie felt that her dreams had turned into reality. She had once dreamed about him, but she didn't even dare to approach him then, and could only watch him from afar. Jessie sighed slightly and propped her chin up while she squatted in front of the bed. Her eyes greedily surveyed the face before her and eventually landed on his sensual lips. Her face flushed red right up to her ears as she recalled the several kissing scenes they had in the morning. She felt that Vincent must have deliberately not let her go through the scenes, but she couldn't find any proof of that as every time she was kissed, her mind went blank and she simply didn't know how to act. She thought to herself, if I steal a kiss from him now, he wouldn't find out, right? Besides, he kissed me so many times in the morning. Surely, it's not a problem if I sneak a little kiss as an interest. Jessie gulped and bit her lip nervously, like a thieving kitten, then slowly approached his thin lips and closed her eyes, touching him lightly. Immediately after that, she hurriedly drew back. She couldn't go on kissing him like this in case she woke him up. However, she was satisfied even with a light touch. She picked up her phone to look at the news for a while and immediately saw the video of Eva leaving the hospital earlier that was posted by her fans. In the video, Louis guarded her closely as if he were her bodyguard, and even if someone were to bump into her, he would be able to protect her immediately. Jessie thought if only Eva got together with Louis. It seemed that she was worried for Julian because he wanted Eva to be his sister-in-law. Meanwhile, Eva had just returned to the hotel when Louis's assistant came over to invite her to dinner in the hotel restaurant. After changing into a comfortable outfit, she went to the restaurant where Louis was waiting for her in a private booth. There was a bouquet of bright roses on the couch for her. Eva took a look at the flowers, then at the man on the couch. Picking up a cup of tea, she sat by the dining table and looked at him. "Let's talk about the termination of my contract. I don't want you to leave my company." Louis got straight to the point as he wasn't fond of beating around the bush. "I have the right to unilaterally terminate my contract. You can't make me stay." She had earned enough money in his company over the years, and she now wanted to be free. "If I wanted you to stay, I'd definitely find a way." He raised his eyebrows slightly, using his identity as her superior to pressure her. "Don't go too far," an enraged Eva warned. "Don't leave. Stay by my side, and I can give you all the resources you want." Louis involuntarily pleaded with her. If it wasn't for her insistence to leave, he wouldn't have bothered to use his status to bargain with her. "What if I refuse?" In all her years of being in this circle, Eva had developed a temper. Though she could be kind, she also had a sharp edge. "Then, I can only forcefully retain you." Louis's legal department had no pushovers. Once they examined the contract, there would be plenty of loopholes for them to exploit. "Louis, you think you stand to gain anything by keeping me by your side?" Eva gripped her teacup and placed it on the table.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.